Good evening and welcome. Welcome to our Stay by the Tree Messages of Hope webinar series. We have a special topic that we are hitting this time with our Stay by the Tree series of breaking the chains of pornography, and we're sharing some powerful principles and tools from all of our presentations. This is the third in our three-part series. And tonight we're extra excited for you to be here because the director of our Sons of Helaman program will be facilitating a panel of graduates from the Sons of Helaman and Men of Moroni programs here at LifeChanging Services. And his name is Maurice Harker, and I'm so excited for you to meet him and to see the dynamic way that that this panel is going to be facilitated. And there he is. So glad that he's here. But yeah, we have a special topic of breaking the chains of pornography because parents and leaders and youth, we all need some help in this area. It's something that all of us are facing. And we here at LifeChanging Services and Mothers Who Know have a bold and courageous approach to this issue. And so we want to be sure that you know about that approach that we have that brings so much hope and healing to your family. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Karen Broadhead. I'm the director of Mothers Who Know, which is a program here at LifeChanging Services. And we have a motto that I want to share with you. While breaking the chains of pornography, the issue of pornography can really affect our families. And when it does affect us individually or as a family or a parent, it can just make it feel like we're in a storm in this great dark wilderness. It can feel like that. And so in that wilderness feeling that can feel kind of dark and dreary, we have a motto here at Mothers Who Know, which is stay by the tree. And it helps direct our thinking and our hearts toward where we want to be when we're supporting God's work with any kind of issue in our family. And BJ is going to tell you a little bit more about stay by the tree and our motto here in a minute. But because these kinds of things can cause a lot of fear in our lives to come up, because we're in a place we haven't been before, we're in a place maybe we don't understand, and we're noticing that it's difficult to navigate, it can bring up a lot of fear. And our theme in Mothers Who Know is the scripture taken from 2 Timothy 1:7, and it is, God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so we're just excited for you to be here tonight. We're so grateful for your time taken here and for the care that you are showing around this topic for yourself and for people that you love. And I invite you to consider tonight as you listen that this isn't breaking the chains just of pornography. You will notice that the things that are shared tonight are breaking the chains of any kind of issue in our lives. So just notice that tonight as you're listening. So I'm going to turn the time over to BJ, who will be also helping facilitate our meeting and supporting Maurice and the generals tonight. She has some information for us, and she's going to introduce Maurice Harker. Thanks, BJ.
You bet. Thank you, Karen. I love that. Breaking the chains of anything. So good. Okay, just a little bit of information. Just the faces of these generals, it just elevates this meeting. Thank you for being here, and thank you if you can be on screen. That really adds so much to our meeting. So, like Karen said, my name is BJ Hill, and I found LifeChanging Services about 10 years ago when my bishop recommended LifeChanging Services, and with some things that our families were struggling with, several things, but it's just been a lifeline for me, and I've so appreciated Mothers Who Know. So just welcome all of you tonight. And we want to just share a couple of things, and most of our time we want to get going so we can spend it with Maurice and the general. So let's just give a little bit of information. This webinar series is sponsored by LifeChanging Services and Mothers Who Know. And LifeChanging Services, like many of you know, is just an awesome team of Latter-day Saint therapists and coaches and other professionals that provide gospel-centered training and healing. These are some of the incredible programs that they offer. And like I said, lots of us know a lot about these, and they've just provided so much help and healing for our families. You can go to lifechangingservices.org if you're ready to find out a little bit more about some of those things that they offer. Tonight's meeting will go for about 90 minutes. We'll go from 7 until about 8:30 Mountain Time. And what we'll do is, after I share a little bit about introducing Maurice and a little bit about who we are, I'm going to hand it over to Maurice, and then he will just facilitate a generals panel. You'll get to see what that's like. And then as we go through, if you have questions, we've had this at night so that we can have bishops and leaders and parents and youth be able to attend easily. And so if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we will try and weave as many as we can in with those. Maurice is super good at just following the chat and talking and doing 50 things at once. And so we will help him with questions that come in if we need to. And so just feel free to do that. And I'm guessing that the answers to various questions will answer a lot of different circumstances. So I think you're going to really appreciate that. One thing to know is that you can put it on speaker view. If you go up to the top right corner where it says view on your screen, you can change it to speaker view if you'd like to be able to see who is speaking just a little bit better. And if you want to see as many squares as fit on a screen, you can select gallery view. So top right corner, and it's the view. Sometimes that helps your experience as you watch. So we wanted to just share a little bit more about the name of this series. As mothers and parents and leaders, we totally understand the worry and fear that we can feel as we hope to make sure our loved ones find the Savior. And so the name of this webinar series, Stay by the Tree, comes from the scriptural account in the Book of Mormon of that beloved prophet Lehi, and it's commonly called the Tree of Life Vision. We just love how it depicts the best place for us to all stand while we are beckoning to loved ones on their journey is to stick right close to the Savior. We notice that Lehi beckons and he invites and he speaks with all the feelings of a tender parent, calls out in a loud voice. Sometimes he even ceases speaking, but he never leaves the tree. He never forces others to him. He just invites. So standing safely by the Savior and partaking of the fruits he generously extends is the very blessed place for us to feel peace and hope and love, even in the middle of hard. We've watched that over and over. We love to share that truth. So the generals panel today is going to be facilitated by Maurice Harker, and the title is Mastery Unveiled, Conversations with the Generals. And it's going to be a peek into the transformative training of the Sons of Helaman. Just to give you a little bit of background on Maurice, it's always helpful to know that if you're new here. Maurice Harker he's the one that started the Sons of Helaman program. It's a sexual self-mastery training program, and it started in 2005. So the Sons of Helaman has helped thousands of young men recover from pornography and other sexual-related issues. He is the originator of Men of Moroni also. It's an equivalent to the Sons of Helaman, and also the Worth Group, which serves women that are experiencing betrayal trauma. And then also Eternal Warriors training. It's a prevention and self-mastery training. And Maurice specializes in providing services with interventions that accurately synchronize effective psychological science with eternal principles. And he's most known and sought after for the work he does with individuals and couples who have been traumatized by sexual misbehavior. And if you go to lifechangingservices.org, you can actually scroll to the bottom of that main homepage, and you'll see several books that Maurice has authored or co-authored, and And several of them, maybe all of them, I needed to double check, you can get a free ebook of. And so that's a great place to get those. And we'll put the link to that in the chat. But just a little bit more information, Maurice acquired both his bachelor's and master's degrees from University of Utah. And for over 17 years, Maurice provided specialized services as a clinical mental health counselor. The first 7 years were with LDS Family Services. And then in 2005, he opened LifeChanging Services. And he has now shifted his focus to primarily functioning as the director of LifeChanging Services and just providing group trainings and workshops in self-mastery and marriage repair, as well as occasionally offering advanced consultations. And so we just want to thank you, amazing generals. Thank you, Maurice. Maurice has been coming to help our group Stepmothers Who Know for years and years. And I have so many things in my pockets that have helped me with parenting and mothering and spousing and neighboring. And I just have so appreciated that. So big thanks to all of you generals and to you, Maurice. Okay, I think we're going to hand it over to you, Maurice.
Before you get started, Maurice, could you, generals, if you're here and haven't renamed yourself, if you'll just rename yourself to your name and then the word general after your name, that'd be great. Okay. Thank you, Maurice.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have all of you here. One of the when the idea of starting Sons of Helaman first occurred, many people said, how are you possibly going to be able to get young men, teenagers, to come together in a room and talk about sexual self-mastery? And it's going to be humiliating for them. It's going to be embarrassing for them. You are about to meet some of the most amazing young men you'll ever meet on this planet. Okay, some of them are not as young as others. I've invited Dallin to be with us. He's the oldest. Wave, Dallin. He has not only graduated from the training system, but he's also married and he's attending school to become a clinician in and of himself. And he's got a cute little baby that we don't get to see tonight. So we're not going to be Dallin?
Maybe later.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Dallin. Bryson, you're the first one on my list today. Bryson is newly returned from his mission. I met him 4 years ago, Bryson, 5 years ago?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
All right, Bryson. Now, when rumor has it that in order to run a young men's sexual self-mastery group, you must shame them and embarrass them into positive behavior. And it's awkward and weird to attend the meetings. Now, I'm just going to tell you a little about Bryson. Bryson is a very cool man. He is one of the top athletes, was a catcher for a local high school, varsity player, high academic student. Bryson, tell us about what happens, first visit into a Sons of Helaman meeting, and how do they motivate if they don't use shame? How does it work in those meetings?
Well, yeah, I'd say, I mean, it's definitely not a shameful or shame-based environment. I think there's just something within a young man that when he's in a group with other young men, also striving to become better in some ways, there's a little bit of a competitive aspect, not to any detriment, but just the fact that you're there with other guys like you who at first glance you would think are normal, right? That you would never imagine them having the same problems that you do or the same struggles, but just being there with the other guys and being able to talk about it openly, but also focusing more on the solution than the problem, being equipped with the tools and the things that you can do to overcome it.
Thank you, Bryson. We may come back to you. Zakaya. Zakaya's got a fun name. All right. I met him not too long ago. He's been doing two things at once since he joined our training system. He's also been preparing for a mission. Zakaya, Aren't those Sons of Helaman meetings full of a bunch of weirdos? And how could a sexual self-mastery training system have anything to do with mission prep?
Well, to go with the first part is, I guess, why, what makes it all weird to be considered weird, or that we are together in that this is something that we've all dealt with. We have the same problem that we all are fighting for. And that means that there's a connection there that we all have. And for me especially is I'm used to being known as the weird one in a lot of settings, and I feel like being able to connect to other people through this kind of makes it more like a more positive experience of being able to grow and be a better person. And well, for the part about the mission, that as I've kind of gone through the program and fighting for mastery, that it's trained me in how I can fight now and I can fight longer later. That my mission is a huge goal in my life, that as I am here mastering myself, it can lead to mastering myself in the ways of being able to feel that spirit with me always. It trains me in being able to fight for my beliefs and to keep Satan away from me as I get through those moments. Because
go ahead, finish up if you have more to say.
Because yeah, it's very important to just know how to fight back and to be one with God.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce you to two guys back to back now. One of them who is proud of being very nerdy. Casey, get ready. So you're my nerd rep for today. Okay. And Cade C, you're my athletic jock super stud representative. You cool with that?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Okay. You got your hair cut, Cade. Like where's your hair?
I mean, I left it in Utah. It's almost like I'm going on a mission or something.
All right. You get yourself ready for your answers. Okay. Casey, how do we blend a room full of nerdy types and a room full of athletic types? What goes on in those meetings that make it welcoming and like a brotherhood where they want to hang out with each other? What's up with that, Casey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that kind of comes into that is that it's just like in any conversation that you have with somebody, it's that common ground of everybody in the room, whether you're a nerdier stay-at-home type like me, or like a outdoorsy kind of hiker or something like that. We're all there struggling with the same thing, all trying to be warrior brothers, and we all love Jesus. And so we're all there trying to be better. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I learned, was just that everybody in that same room was trying to be better. And it didn't matter if they were incredibly annoying to me and I didn't like them, and they had different things they did or thought than me or whatever, but we were all trying to be good men.
Thank you. Cade, what goes on in those meetings that makes you want to keep coming back and that motivated you? And tell us a little bit about how it applied to your mission prep. When do you leave? When do you hit the MTC?
I start home MTC on November 13th.
Thank you. All right. So first one, what goes on in those meetings that makes a difference?
Well, it's, like some people have already touched on, there's kind of a competitive atmosphere that's also, riddled with so much support from all your brothers and from your clinician. And I don't know, it's a really good atmosphere to sort of recover from these sorts of things.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now I'm going to introduce you to the youngest general that's attending us now, and then we'll follow that up with the oldest one. Okay. Now, one of the questions we get is, Maurice, maybe you didn't realize this, but young men's frontal lobes are not very developed. Okay, they're a little on the skippy side of like cognitive functioning. I've even had some professionals tell me that it's inappropriate to expect sexual self-mastery from an adolescent male because they're mostly animal brains and they can't really have any intentional thinking. Okay, Aaron, you ready? Okay.
I guess so.
How old are you, Aaron?
I'm 14.
Okay, 14. Now, isn't it true that your brain is not sophisticated enough to learn self-mastery?
I guess so.
Then how did you become a general if your brain's not capable of it?
Oh, well, it's kind of, for me personally, I think that I have a strong willpower and it's mostly kind of like mental. So I kind of just like pushed myself in. I hated losing to lots of things. And so like if I lost any time, like even in the past or even like in the present, I would kind of just like beat myself up for it. And I didn't like that feeling. So I just kind of like keep away from that too. So for me, it's personally just like mindful power, but also what helped a lot was just being with everyone else and knowing that I wasn't alone. Like the first meeting, I remember I thought everyone was gonna judge me for how young I was and stuff. And that really scared me. I didn't want to go. I was like, oh my gosh, why do I have to go? But then the first time we got pizza. So I just kept on coming, you know.
Now, Aaron, is it true that you became one of the lead generals in your group as the youngest guy?
Yes, that's very true.
What's up with that? Like you became a leader in your group as the youngest one there?
Yeah, so I think a leader is more like I was more understanding. Like I went, so like as being a general, I would understand like how people felt and stuff, like through each stage. I would know how they're feeling and stuff. And so I would understand what they're going through and I would just kind of help them out-ish, I guess.
All right, so any of you adults out there who have any education or training in human psychology, we just witnessed something that's quite phenomenal. Aaron might not even know what he just did, but a 14-year-old boy just exhibited emotional empathy for other humans. Okay? Uh, Rather shocking experience, but now I just make sure you know this, that Aaron does spend a lot of time not in his frontal lobe because he's got attention deficit disorder and can still act like a 14-year-old, but he's learned how to flip the switch. If you'll notice what he's doing right now is he's intentionally flipped the switch into his frontal lobe and he's now accessing emotional intelligence beyond what many 40-year-old men are capable of. So, Aaron, way to show off and not even know it. Good
Thanks.
job. Okay, Dallin, you've been studying the science of human development and psychology. You're the oldest graduate we have with us today. Tell us about some of the science. And now, just so you know, I'm not going to talk about this much, but Dallin looks like a clean-cut, wholesome young man in his mid-20s, but he's actually a rebellious teenager in disguise. Okay, I'll let you hint at how off the deep end you went. No, we don't need to talk about that, Dallin. Let's just say Dallin exercised his freedom of choice at a liberal level to the point of consternation from his parents, and somehow he acquired the principles and concepts necessary to now be an excellent presider in his own home and with one or more organizations with life-changing services. Dallin, tell us the principles that you've learned and give us a little bit of a scientific tilt on it since you're a student of psychology. Like, we have some scientists in the audience today, so we want to know that is this just a religious man pressure system or what?
Yeah, it's definitely a religious man pressure system. That's what we're doing. It's not, we're not motivating with shame, we're motivating with pizza. That's what we motivate with, right? No, I don't know. The science is interesting because, right, like adolescence is sort of this period of time where we're torn about our identity and we have role confusion, right, where we're not sure where we'll fit into the world from a developmental perspective, right? You're confused about who you are and what you're going to be when you grow up and what you are right now and how that fits into everything. But the interesting thing is that God is not confused about those things, right? There's a reason that God has given men priesthood at the age of 12. Like, he's not confused at who they are, or what their potential is, or what they can accomplish. He knows that they can be presiders, providers, and protectors right from the get-go. And I've witnessed that time and time again, right? That given some tools, given some guidance, given a little bit of direction, and the young men that we work with, they just skyrocket, right? They're able to turn their lives around and turn back towards the Savior, back towards Jesus Christ. I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did a great job. I have a follow-up question. So a lot
please.
of questions we get from mothers and from church leaders and others is, how do you motivate the guys? Now, since we've been there, and I'll let several of the guys talk about this, but the mystery to many of them is that we don't need to. There's an assumption that the warriors are unmotivated, that they don't have an internal drive. You've done a lot of one-on-one work as a personal warrior trainer with many of these guys, and they are driven. Why do they want to win? What is going on inside of them?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing is that you can't, in my experience, you can't like push motivation on another person, right? It has to be intrinsic. They have to, if you want long-term change, long-term success. So the guys who do want to change, they want to change because they understand that life is better on the covenant path. Life is better, as Karen put it at the beginning of this meeting, by the tree, right? Experiencing and basking in the light of Christ and the love of God. They know, they've tasted that, right? They've grown up in the gospel. They know what it's like to feel the Spirit, to feel worthy, to go to the temple, to prepare the sacrament, to bless the sacrament. They know what that feels like. They know it's awesome. They also know what the alternative feels like, and it's horrible. And so it's, I think already a couple generals have talked about it. Like, I hated losing. I don't want to lose anymore. Do whatever it takes to move away. Yeah, it's not a tough thing to be like, we don't spend any time being like, why shouldn't you do this anymore? In fact, we don't tell them, right? We don't even define what a lost battle is anymore. They do, right? It's all about where do you want to be and how do we help you get there? And they can set those goals and those parameters and those behaviors that they want to achieve by themselves because they're doing the work, right? They're connecting with the Spirit. They're saying prayers. They're reading their patriarchal blessings. They know where God wants them to be, and they just need help getting there.
Thanks, Dallin. Now I'm going to introduce you to two other cases, if you will, types of situations. I'm going to talk about one fellow who should have pretty severe post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. He was born in Ukraine and he was adopted and he's got all sorts of family dynamics and he has to talk slow or you won't understand what the heck he's saying because he talks so fast. Okay. So I'll get him ready to go. But another one I want to have make a comment just disappeared. Where did he go? Eli, are you there? Where did Eli? Okay. Now, Eli and I have known each other for some time. Now, many parents come to us and ask about comorbid conditions. Eli's not ashamed to say that he's enjoyed life on the spectrum. Okay, the autism Asperger's spectrum. Okay, and it's like, how do you like, does this training system work for people on the spectrum? And then Jameson, when I flip over to you, what about PTSD? Doesn't that mess up your head for a long-term case and now you're a broken person, you'll never recover? So Jameson, think about how you've been able to apply the principles to acquire self-mastery, but let's come back to Eli first. Eli, can you really adapt the training tools of Sons of Helaman to someone with who's on the autism spectrum? First, give us a little bit of an idea of your version of it. Like you've self-analyzed.
Sure.
You know who you are. You know what you are. Tell us what version of it you have.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm Eli. I have autism. I spent a long time trying to figure out what that meant and how I could deal with that. I spent a lot of time just being confused at social cues that I wasn't picking up, concepts in school I wasn't picking up, and on top of that, this addiction to pornography and masturbation, which I couldn't wrap my head around at all, like why I was doing it. And so when I came to Sons of Helaman, it was really a game changer. First of all, because it was something I chose to do, something that was really hard about growing up was that they tried to take special care of me by giving me all these accommodations in school, which didn't give me the chance to really exercise what I was capable of, to know if I could really do hard things. And so I appreciated where they came from, but it was ultimately after Sons of Helaman that I realized I could do things for myself. And since I wasn't very good at socializing, I just observed a lot of the lessons, and then I was able to kind of mimic the reactions of people and how they were acting, and then that translated into actually feeling what they were feeling and knowing this is the war, this is what I'm here to fight, and this power, this warrior chemistry is real and it's inside of me, and I just need to tap into it and I can overcome anything. And that's kind of my story. And a great thing about autism, I gotta say, is that you get obsessed over things. And on on the mission, I learned how to control my obsession so I can obsess over the things that matter. On my mission, I obsessed over the gospel. In Sons of Helaman, I obsessed over self-mastery. And now I have to catch myself when I'm with my friends one-on-one and make sure I'm not doing therapy with them, because oftentimes I find myself doing that now. But it's just been eye-opening to me, and it's such a deep field of combining what we know from science to what we know about the gospel. And I'm so grateful that I was able to come to myself, make the decision to go to Sons of Helaman and stick through it until I got it.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Eli. Jameson, the poor adopted boy from Ukraine who has no friends.
That's not true.
Tell us what you learned. Tell us what you've experienced. Tell us why, what you applied to your life. That now your mission call also.
Yes.
When are you leaving, or is it?
I start my I talked to my stake president, and he's confirmed that I'm going to start on the date I was supposed to.
Okay.
October 30th, I start my MPC.
Ooh,
so
just over a month away. Okay.
Over a month away, yes.
What did you learn in your training of Sons of Helaman that made the difference?
Oh, there's a lot of things that I've learned, honestly. But what I guess I've learned first, like coming from what you said, like I'm from post-traumatic stress and wherever. I've been exposed to this like addiction at such a young age. You know, and so I constantly going throughout the years. I started losing hope. I was like, this isn't possible to get over. You know, I was already like giving up. I was like, you know, this is just who I am. You know, this is gonna be with me forever. Um, until I came to until I got adopted by an American family uh, into the church, and so I feel like one of the things that helped me first, one of the things first that uh, Sons of Helaman helped me is, in a way, sort of to understand the gospel better because a lot of the things we learn uh, do apply in a certain way of gospel help me understand myself and how God created me and how I work, and that you know no matter how many times I sleep up, you know that there's always there's always hope for me to get back up and to do it again, you know. So that's kind of my motivation, and also since it's a big like warrior chemistry, it's a big like you know cooperation. Uh, at the beginning, it took my whole family to get me started uh, on my uh, on my progress, and then by step by step, it took my team. I mean, I was at the beginning, I was like, you know, there's no way I could be better. But you know, seeing all the generals graduate, seeing all the other people, even seeing Maurice, like imagine if Maurice can do it, why can I, right? Like,
What are you trying to say, Jameson?
I'm just trying to say that like it's just being in a group, like being in this situation, like seeing all these people graduate, like if all of them can do it, right, I can do it too. So that's kind of what helped me. It helped me to just told me that like you know I can do it. That it doesn't stop here. You know, it'll take a lot of effort, but but it doesn't have to like stop. You know what I mean? You don't have to give up. And so that's what I guess it taught me is that there's always there's always you lifting yourself up, and there's always warrior chemistry that you can use, and there's always things that you can learn, and there's always Jesus Christ that is always there to lift me up on His shoulder. Sometimes He might carry me a little before I can start walking on myself, uh, but yeah, that's just been a really nice and strengthening experience for me to be in the Sons of Helaman. And then to add on, like I I went to general, then I became non-general, then I went to general again, and became non-general. So it's been many times where I became general, and then and I became non-general. And what it also taught me is that uh, these things work, right? These things like work, and as long as you do the things that you have to, as long as you do the things that you've been taught, as long as you use your warrior chemistry, as long as you pay attention to your feelings and to the Holy Ghost constantly, you will be able to step by step get better and better every day. You just gotta do it, you know.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I've got a couple more guys I want to introduce you to, but we just got a question come in. We have a mom that asked the question, have any of your generals participated only in Zoom group meetings? So brethren, those of you who've only done Zoom meetings, please put your little yellow hand thing up. So put your little yellow hand thing up if you've only done online meetings and you've never been in an in-person meeting. Okay, all right, so we have 6 of them. All right, Ammon, let's bring you into the conversation. Don't worry, Scott, I'm saving you for something special, all right? You better go stretch out a little bit because we're gonna have some fun with Scott in a second here, okay? All right, Ammon. So actually, you graduated from someone's group that was not mine. I was not your group leader. Who's your main group leader?
Brighton Peterson was my main group leader.
Okay, we gotta say something about Bryson Peterson. Bryson Peterson, I met him 10 years ago. Lisa, was it 10 years ago? Is that right?
Graduated from your group in 2012.
Oh, he graduated in 2012. All right, Brighton's not with us now. He's probably running another group because he decided after he graduated and went on a mission that he would go to school to become a self-mastery trainer himself, and now he runs groups. And so we now have this grandfather experience of Ammon having graduated from his group. So Ammon, here's the question. Was the support and camaraderie strong and the friendship and trust built in an online group? And how does that work if you can't like chest bump and like sit with each other like men do?
Well, in my experience, as I went to these Zoom meetings, while I wasn't able to, and I quote, chest bump with all of my new friends, I learned more about myself and I learned more about them, and we became such a close-knit group from just the knowledge that I'm not alone in this world. I don't suffer from this alone. And just knowing that, and knowing that, hey, that guy knows what I'm going through. He can be my friend. And being able to know that, it made our group such a tight-knit group. And these friendships that I've made in group will last through my lifetime.
How old are you, Ammon?
I am 16.
Aren't 16-year-olds supposed to be immature?
Well, yeah, supposedly, according to rumors. But
Aren't they supposed to not care about things like this? Like, Ammon, all the normal guys are just enjoying some quality lost battles, right, Ammon?
They like to think that, but they have a hole inside their soul that they're just trying to fill, but they don't know how to do it, and that's the short-term filling that they find.
Wow, thank you. All right, Scott, you ready? Oh, by the way, while I'm bonding and male bonding with Scott, the rest of you brethren, I'm going to put this mother's question into the chat, and I want you to stretch your fingers out. This mom is nervous and she's scared because she has a son who is nervous and scared. So here's her question.
So
go ahead, Karen.
For some reason, I thought, oh, not everybody's going to be able to see the question, but I think that since you sent it, they can, because I know that people who are entering things in the chat, it's just coming to co-hosts and hosts.
Okay.
But I think everybody can see your question. Yeah.
Okay, so are they going to see you guys' answers?
Yeah, we won't be able to show our answers to this.
Oh, thanks. So
I can.
I mean, yeah, we could send them to Karen and she could post them to everyone.
Yeah, let's do it. So type your answers in, guys, and then Karen will copy and paste them to everyone else.
Actually, I can make them all a co-host, and that will work.
Ooh. So hold on, guys.
Yep.
Wait till Karen gives you wait till that's a lot of trust.
I know. That's why I know this is advanced training for awesome guys. Here we go.
All right, Scott, you ready? Okay, I got to introduce you, Scott. Okay. Now, I get to know these guys a little bit, and Scott is the best liar you're ever going to meet. Okay? He is good at it. He is skilled at it. He knows how to sin and get away with it. Okay? He is got some mad skills that make it so his parents go crazy with what to do with him. But wait. That was the old Scott. Something happened inside of him. Okay. I've witnessed this for the last 2 years. Now, if you can't tell by his background, he's at a military school, which is what?
College prep military school.
College prep military school. And over the last year and a half, somehow he has become one of the most respected leaders in the entire school and has the title to prove it. So, Scott, first of all, one question.
Yes.
Are guys allowed to lie in group?
They can, but from personal experience, yes, it is possible to lie in group. You will usually be caught later on, however.
Okay.
And
so keep going.
It really, in my experience, it would like break down before I lied, and almost like was like, why are you lying? Just tell the truth. There's no point to lie, and made me feel bad afterwards. And there was a point when I just didn't feel bad anymore because I just didn't care enough. But I slowly regained that and started learning more. Like, I have to start feeling bad about this. And when I start feeling bad, then I'm like, okay, now I have to change for the better.
So Maurice sometimes uses a term or a phrase, the Holy Ghost is a ghost. It will haunt you. Okay. Now, does the group use some kind of a peer pressure or social pressure to pressure you into telling the truth? Or does it come from some other source?
It's both, really. Because I guess the peer pressure is that everyone else, from what everyone else can tell, is that everyone tells the truth. There's no point to lie. You just should tell the truth. But then the outside source, the Holy Ghost, it's basically existing, and it's also like pressuring you, pushing you along to do better, to actually tell the truth, instead of going ahead and thinking you should lie. Telling you that if you lie, then, well, not telling you what will happen, but it's just saying like it's not a good idea to lie. And then when you lie, you realize, oh wait, the Holy Ghost was right. I should have listened.
Thank you. Now, when you started applying the principles in order to acquire self-mastery, because we won't make it super awkward and tell people the high quality level of sinning you were doing for a while there. There's no need to get into details. By the way, for those who are listening in, we use a term called lost battles. There's a couple of reasons we use the term lost battles. Lost battles reminds us all that this is a psychological war with Satan. And it also reminds us that temptation does not come from ourselves. It comes from the outside, and we need to be in a battle. We also use the term lost battle because there's no need to talk graphically about the actual misbehaviors, because you don't work to acquire sexual self-mastery by talking about sexual misbehavior. Okay? These guys gain discernment skills that help them recognize when their brains and body chemistry are tilting off course really early on. So this is called the chemical scale. We may come wrapping around to it to talk a little bit more about it. But Scott, would you walk us through just some of the standout principles that you needed to incorporate into yourself to start to really lock down your self-mastery?
Well, I guess start with leadership, for example. As mentioned before, I go to an all-male boarding school, college prep, military-based boarding school in California, and I'm originally from Idaho. I have been here since my freshman year, and I am now a senior in one of the top 10 leadership positions of the battalion, out of 200 something cadets. Halfway through my junior year, I got chosen to be in a leadership position, and I decided, and before I was just goofing around, not really doing as well as I should. And then I got the leadership position. I was like, oh, I need to step up now. I really have to do better. I stepped up, started doing better, and I just kept improving one day at a time, started adding on myself. And it got to the point where I was good enough to be chosen for one of the top 10. So now I help lead the battalion with more admin stuff, making spreadsheets and whatnot. But it wouldn't be like, I have to give credit where credit is due. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Maurice, because because I would do a bunch of one-on-one sessions with him. In fact, I still do sometimes. And he taught me so much about leadership. I am a history buff, and I love everything to do with military, especially World War II. And so he would talk with me all the time about General Patton, George Washington, any other just great military leaders, specifically Patton. He's one of my idols, basically. And I just learned so much from Maurice explaining to me different concepts and different ideas. And that really helped multiply on top of what I was already learning in Sons of Helaman, to the point that I now can be here where I am today, to be talking with all of you as a general, which is a great feeling, because for a long time, I didn't think I'd ever be anything close to this. So yeah, I thank Maurice
Yeah.
for done. So
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. I
Just
wanted to
really quick, I have to say, like Scott was like I was his PWT, so like Scott is really, really cool. Just by the way, Scott's awesome. He was my PWT. Well, I was his PWT.
What's a PWT, Casey?
Personal warrior trainer. So basically, we work with the young men one-on-one, where they go to group with a coach, and then they get assigned a PWT that basically works with them one-on-one and kind of gets them to win the nitty-gritty battles. And so Scott's pretty awesome. I was his PWT.
So Casey, I thought you were just a graduate of Sons of Helaman. How does a graduate of Sons of Helaman become a personal warrior trainer? And why would we choose a graduate to be a personal warrior trainer?
Well, it's almost kind of a like a natural path a little bit. That if you finish up and you're a graduate and you feel like it's somewhere you want to go, you're like I was asked, hey, do you want to take like the training to become a personal warrior trainer and work with other guys? And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And so I ended up doing it, and I think it really does give that sense of camaraderie, because you're not just working with somebody who has no idea what you're going through. You're working with someone who literally went through everything you're going through and has had the same temptations, the same fears, all that stuff. And so, yeah, there's plenty of stuff you can do if that's where you want to head afterwards.
Thank you. All right, let's look at the chat for a second. There's two things. One, would some techie person, probably you, Casey, there's lots of answers by the generals for everyone. Is everyone seeing all the answers you're getting on the question that was submitted so the generals are answering? Is that working? Okay, great. Okay, there was one question that was added here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but about 7 years ago, we developed a training system called Daughters of Light for the young women who are struggling with pornography and sexual self-mastery. So because I feel like it's my calling, if you will, I have 8 brothers and no sisters. And so my gravitation towards young men and their life battles and adult men has always been my primary focus. And while I have some confidence in working with young women on a one-on-one level, group dynamics are a bit out of my range. And so we, starting with Mindy Lundgren, and then Anelity Milne now is the leader of the Daughters of Light program. So BJ or someone, would you please post a link to Daughters of Light, which is not an exact mirror image of Sons of Helaman. It has been carefully adapted to serve young women really well and accurately. So yes, we do have sexual self-mastery. And the reason we use the term sexual self-mastery is because the people we work with, the young men and the adults we work with, they don't want to limit their development to working on a porn problem or working on a masturbation issue. Okay. Dallin, who's now married, many men never learn that when you get married, you still need sexual self-mastery. Your wife is not an object of sexual entertainment. She is a human with a body that needs to be respected and treated as a person. And so whether a warrior deals with temptations for pornography or masturbation or affairs outside of marriage, we work hard to train them to have mastery over their sexuality. The scriptural term for it is bridle your passions, so that when they get married, their wives are not treated like sexual objects. They are treated like women who have their brains in the game, and the guys get to have a more broad psychological and emotional intimacy in their marriages, which makes their physical intimacy life more comfortable. So that's why we use the term sexual self-mastery. All right, I'm going to look at some more of the questions. Where is he? Cade, are you still here? Okay, Cade and Bryson, this question is for the two of you. All right. Cade and Bryson are highly athletic representatives today. Jameson, I don't know if you consider yourself a serious athlete. Are you an athlete, Jameson? All right. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I've done both soccer and wrestling.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Bryson's now in training to become a professional in the field of psychology as well. Cade's pre-mission, Bryson's post-mission. And so I'm going to have Bryson address this a little bit first, but let's talk science for a second. There's this thing that we train called warrior chemistry. All right. It's got a little catchy phrase to it, but we need to talk about the science behind it. And I'm talking to the athletes because of what we're referring to is an extremely understandable concept if you have an understanding of athletic psychology. And so there is a moment in time that there are many different names for it in a sporting event when an athlete feels like he's probably going to lose in his athletic event. There's this flattening, disheartening, hopelessness of, I'm just going to give up. Okay. Now, when you see this moment in movies, all right, there's usually a switch in the music. All right. Something happens in the music, which now we take this disheartened and hopeless athlete and he starts to consider pulling off a miracle, becoming heroic and going against the odds. So for those who don't want to study the deep academic elements of warrior chemistry, the simplest explanation for what warrior chemistry is this internal sensation that I just described, where one goes from feeling weak, hopeless, and pathetic to feeling heroic. All right. And so, Bryson and Cade, I want you to talk about this in two ways. One, how does this apply to your athletic experience? And then how does it apply to your self-mastery experience? Bryson, let's have you go first.
Yeah. So I play baseball, and if anybody's aware of baseball, it's a very ritualistic game. Lots of like superstitions and things like that. So like, for example, just one thing that would get me in the zone, right? You hear athletes talk about being in the zone. One example, right, is like when I get to practice and when I've taken off my street clothes and I'm in my uniform and like I'm lacing up my cleats, right? Like everything about school and girlfriends and work, all of that is forgotten. And I'm an athlete, like that's who I am. And warrior chemistry gets me in that mindset of being the warrior that I am. And as an athlete, right, those moments where you are in the zone are moments where you remember why you're there playing, why you are at practice every day, why you do the same drill over and over and over. It's because you want to win the championship or achieve personal goals. And so warrior chemistry, I think, is, I know it's the same feelings that the Nephites had when they remembered their wives and their children and their liberty. Their reasons for fighting is what activated that feeling within them. And the more that we have that with us, right, the more an athlete can be in the zone, the better he's going to perform. And so if we have that passion and that warrior chemistry with us in every aspect of our life, the better we'll perform in whatever self-mastery goals that we have.
Thank you, Bryson. Cade, talk about being low, down, and out in athletics, and then flipping the switch, and then how that applies to self-mastery.
Yeah, so my sport was football, and as you all know, that's a really physical sport. And I was able to draw so many parallels between this sport and this battle that I was fighting. Spirit, you know, you hear a lot of times people say when the game stands tall, and you can't always control everything that's going on in a football game, just like you can't always control everything that's going on in life. And our coaches used to always, tell us, and they would over and over again, they'd repeat it. The only things you can control are your attitude and your effort. And that's just the same as with fighting the spiritual battle. And also, there's other things like the ferocity that you have to find when you play football. Warrior chemistry is kind of like a ferocity thing where you flip it on and you can use it to your advantage against a very old, very smart, practiced up enemy who's Satan. So like in football, you're fighting to maybe protect your quarterback or, your teammates, the people that you care about. And when you use warrior chemistry, you can do that in a similar way to fight to protect your mother, your sisters, your brothers, and just the people in your life that, that you are that you care about, if that makes sense.
Thank you, thank you. So this is where the title of the book, Like Dragons Did They Fight, comes from, is for their lives and for their wives and for their children. What we learned as scientists is if you have a room full of guys who feel weak and pathetic and like they're just losers, it doesn't matter what content and instruction you give them. There's something about transitioning in your brain to feeling psychologically heroic. And what amazes me about these young warriors is even the 14-year-olds, we will do drills in the training sessions where we have them go from a low level on the chemical scale where they're psychologically vulnerable, and then they'll fight their way back up to what we call level 0, which is when your brain is cleansed. Bryson refers to it as being in the zone. Some scientists call it being in the flow, where we're now back in the frontal lobe and we're fully functional. Jameson, what are your thoughts on how all this stuff applies to the athletic world as well as the self-mastery world?
Well, first, it's awesome because you never really think about it, like, as an aspect of physical versus the spiritual, right? You always think that, like, this is the brain and this is the physical, like they don't connect. But when you go over the aspects and how Maurice is able to a lot of the times connect sports and like other things that are interested our generals into the mental aspect of it, it helps a lot. Like for me, Maurice also did wrestling, so he knows the feeling when you get pinned and you have 5 seconds to either give up or not to give up, right? And so kind of to add, like, it's the worst feeling for me. I hate being on my back, being pressed against the ground. There is only a few times I really like giving up. Like generally, I might not go out. I might not go out on the top. Like I might not go out with the win, but I will escape the pin. I'll be like, you can't pin me, okay? And I feel like that's really important, especially with our battles, right? You're not always going to come on top, right? You won't always win the opponent. He might be bigger, he might be stronger, but if you get pinned and if you give up, you lost already. You can't let Satan pin you because that's the worst feeling in the world. I hate it. So yeah, so that's kind of like being able to relate the physical aspects and the feelings of being in the moment. Like I can imagine it, and it's like, ooh, I just want to go and like go punch somebody, That's just so powerful. I never really thought about it because I've never really thought about the idea of like our brain being such a powerful thing, Because so I don't want to take too much time, but because as all of us with our perverted imagination, I could imagine situations I could play in my head that would get me to lose battles. Like I didn't have to necessarily always go and find it. It could always be in my head. That's how bad it was always. So I guess reversing that, I could use the same thing for good, right? I could generate enough ferocity, and I could be like, ooh, like I hate seeing my family get hurt, or I hate seeing my friends, get beat up, or I hate seeing my sister, being like in a vulnerable position. Like it just turns me on like so much that I just want to go punch a wall, And I feel like that switch and understanding the opposite has helped me so much because I can go from 0 to 1 to 10, to generate enough warrior chemistry to be able to beat. And I feel like this is just such a great tool.
Thanks, Jameson. Appreciate it. Jameson's Ukrainian name is Vladimir, and so sometimes I almost call him Vladimir because it's funner to say than Jameson. It kind of rolls off the tongue. So if I call him Vladimir, that's on accident. All right. Dallin, you just made a comment. Do you want to throw something in based on what you just said?
Sure, yeah, really quick. Sometimes I think men and women experience warrior chemistry differently. So since we got a lot of moms here, I thought I'd just really quick share the example that we typically do to help women understand warrior chemistry. Um, so with warrior chemistry for moms, we call it mama bear chemistry, and this is subject of my wife's mama
You have
bear
an object
chemistry.
lesson for us,
Yeah,
Dallin.
object lesson. He's helping me do something with tools apparently. But basically all you got to do is imagine you're in the grocery store, you got a little one in the shopping cart, and you turn around to grab, something off the shelf, and you turn around and a masked man is running away holding your baby. And that's about all it takes, right? For the blood to start boil and you get to this state of mind where you're like, man, I would do anything. I would do anything to stop that man. I would not hesitate. And I think that that's really the core of warrior chemistry to me. Warrior chemistry is two things. It's one, it's charity, the pure love of Christ, combined with enmity aimed at the enemy, right? So as we refocus our enmity towards Satan and then combine our charity, our love for our wives, our children, our brothers, our sisters. Like if you're young and you don't have a wife or kid yet, like think about your brother, your sister, and how you want to be a good sibling to them, or think about your parents, how you want to be a good son to them, and your relationships, and that charity fuel, and then combined with enmity is so powerful. And it goes from I don't care about anything but losing a battle. That's all I could think about. That's all my body is experiencing right now. To all of a sudden, it's gone. Right? I am focused and determined, and nothing will stop me from winning because I love my family.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we have 23 minutes left. There is a question that came in a little bit ago. I'm going to start answering this one because there's some technicalities to it, but I'll let you guys add your own 2 bits to it. Let me post it in the chat for everyone to see. I don't know how to stop my bell from ringing here. Hope no one else is hearing it a lot. So, okay. So generals, take a look at that question, and then I'll get us started on it. Can you talk about the difference between an addiction and an intentional habit and why it matters? Okay. Now, a little background on myself, and that is I started studying all this stuff. It wasn't my intention to build a program for teenage boys when I first started my work. I was more interested in marital dynamics. Let's just say I lacked some relationship skills when I was in my dating phase. I was engaged twice my first year home from my mission, and I ruined both of those. And then I had to do some more studying and training. So a lot of my early work was on trying to figure out what it meant to be in a healthy relationship, what it meant to be a healthy man. But as part of that, my own sexual self-mastery development issues were unsatisfactory to me. And the way my father phrased the question, a farm man from Idaho, he would say things like, "For such a smart kid, you sure do some stupid things sometimes." All right, that was a common phrase. And as I've met people, the first thing I want to do in answer to this question is invite you to consider a third or fourth alternative explanation. Okay, the human brain is not limited to 2 options of intentional bad behavior versus addiction. I will first address the scientific nature of addiction very briefly. Dallin has offered to give us some more behind that, but let me just give a very brief answer. The scientists in the field of psychology are still debating whether or not something of a sexual nature can even be classified as an addiction. And so currently there's no agreement that there's something called pornography addiction or sexual addiction. So you got a whole bunch of scientists saying that it is or can be. You have a bunch saying that it isn't, and they haven't come to enough of an agreement to put it in the diagnostic manual to say that it actually is a addiction. Okay. Now, in layman's terms, the way I describe something that is an addiction is all of us have a mechanism inside of our brains that are kind of like a nut and bolt set. And there's these threads in between. And think about a topic or an issue in your life that you say to yourself one day, I really want to tighten down on that. Like, I really want to tighten down on going to the gym every day. I really want to tighten down on my eating patterns. Okay. When you're dealing with someone who could be classified as having an addiction, it is as if the threads on that nut and bolt set have been stripped. And when you try to tighten down on it, it just slips and there's no traction. And so one of the ways I can detect it is I'll say, can you commit to the following and hold to it for a week? Can you commit to the following? And I try to be very doable. And then if they can't, then I start to consider that we're working with an addict level issue. If they can, then I just build upon it and we try to strengthen the threads. Intentional implies that if it's not an addiction, it means that it must be done intentionally. Now, I want to walk all of you through a slightly uncomfortable experience. Now, if you're in this meeting, there's a good chance you're human. Okay. And if you're in this meeting, there's a good chance there are certain things that you are not living up to your own value system. All right. A common one falls in the category of parenting. Okay. Most parents promise themselves they will never raise their voice in anger again. Most parents promise themselves that, and most parents break that promise. Okay. Now, imagine if we defined the breaking of a promise where your behavior is out of your control as an addiction. So then we would have to classify if a mother or a father 3 to 5 times promises themselves that they will not raise their voice or be sarcastic or be passive aggressive with their children after having committed to do so, they are now addicted to being angry at their children. Okay, not a great thing to come to a conclusion about. Okay, so in order to avoid the debate over addiction or not addiction, we use the term unwanted behavior. All right. Is the behavior you're participating outside of your value system? So we've been judged and criticized for messing with people's heads, for trying to talk them into having a value system that contradicts their own value system. So if one were to take the time to actually study what we actually do, is we invite each person to determine their own description of behavior, of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And this surprises a lot of parents, but every young man I've ever met has a sexual standard for himself that his mother did not give him. Okay, he has, and gentlemen, you can put whatever symbol you want in the thing to say, do you have your own sexual self-mastery expectations, even if your mom doesn't? Okay, do you expect yourself to live up to a certain standard, even if your bishop doesn't? Okay, we got a wiggling thumb by Dallin. Okay, we got a hands up by Cade. All right, we don't need an outsider to tell us to have a value system. Okay, so what we've been studying, what you'll find in the Like Dragons Did They Fight book, the most recent edition has been softened with respect to which gender it's focused on and which age group it's focused on. So it's intended to be a self-mastery training book for all ages of both sexes. There will be some references from time to time, specifically with the Sons of Helaman. But if you study the scientific concepts carefully, you will get a walkthrough of why do you do things against your value system. So if you want to gain the best value from the Like Dragons or from any of our Breaking the Chains presentations, the wisest approach is to read it with your lost battles in mind, not somebody else's. Assuming you have at least one category where you're possibly still behaving contrary to your own values. Okay? So when I do a training, I have everyone write on a sticky note or in the corner of the book, write down something that you do from time to time that is outside of your value system, or something you don't do that you've promised yourself to follow through on. Like, I really need to go to the gym every day or every other day at least. I really need to do some writing. I really need to read my scriptures every day. I really need to write uplifting and empowering things to other people. So whatever your thing is, please be aware of that before you read the Like Dragons Do They Fight book. And by the way, our team has been putting dozens of videos on our YouTube channel, LifeChanging Services podcast episodes. If you're not much of a reader, there's tons of that stuff that's available. And so, do we have time? Yeah, what I might do is I might have the guys, let's see, Eli. Okay, I'm gonna have Eli, one of our scientific brains, all right, talk us very briefly, Eli, if you would, to walk us down the chemical scale of how a very committed to high values person can slide his way into misbehavior. Okay, so are you going to draw for us?
I have a whiteboard.
You have a whiteboard? All right, but we got to keep it to 5 minutes or less. Can you do that? Okay. So here's the question, Eli. Here I have a person in front of me who is at level 0, and they're clear-headed, and they're sharp, and they're focused, and they wrote down their commitments. I am going to live up to this standard. Okay? How does a strong, committed person, is it because they intentionally decide to do something wrong? Is it because there's a addiction? Our philosophy is neither one. Can you give us a 5-minute explanation of what happens to the human brain once the satanic attack starts?
Gotcha. So, like he was saying, if you're feeling your best self, if you're aligned with your values, we call that a level 0. You can kind of imagine this like a brain, where 0 is the frontal lobe. As you start getting like intrusive thoughts, which we define as satanic attacks, and or other stimuli, you'll start heading towards the level 1, where you start just feeling kind of icky. There's not really a feeling associated with it, but you just feel off, like you feel meh. Level 2 is when you're feeling a strong emotion, and this will usually be emotion like anger or worry or self-doubt or depression. 3 is the big one. Satan has a lot of influence over 3 because it is the point where he suggests a solution to the pain that you're feeling in level 2. And if it's from Satan, it will always be bad. It will always try to drag you down. Level 4 is when you're debating over it. Now, level 4 is kind of ironic. We call it the stupid conversation, because as you're trying to logically debate against going to this relief, but you're no longer in your frontal lobe. Your chemicals are traveling down, and you're starting to go to your animal brain, which is act first, think later. So now we have level 5, where your chemicals are going back, and you've made the decision, hey, I'm gonna do what was suggested in level 3. I'm gonna eat that cookie. I'm gonna not go to the gym. I'm gonna sleep in, or lose another battle. And once we get to level 5, it is very, very rare that you will win that battle. You'll go, there's technically 10 scales, but we don't talk past level 5. So what you need to do is catch those feelings that are triggering those lost battles, those emotions, those suggestions, before they take you there to level 5.
Thank you. That was faster than 5 minutes, so I want you to add one little piece to it, okay? So we have this thing called the satanic spin. Would you hold your chart again and tell us about, so what we're most interested in is what role does Satan play in the chemical reactions of the brain that cause this deterioration of the way the brain works? Now, I want you to keep in mind, audience, Eli, how old are you?
I'm 21.
So we have a 21-year-old here who is on the autism spectrum, and he's describing this concept at what might be seen as a master's degree level. Go ahead, Eli. 2 minutes on the satanic spin, please. Oh, wait, before you start doing that,
Psychology.
real quick, okay? So, gentlemen, I'm typing this really quick for all the generals here, because there's so many of you with so much wisdom. In case we run out of time, please start typing into the chat a few of the most important principles you learned in your Sons of Helaman training. So go ahead and start typing that in case I can't ask you any more questions. So type that into the chat for everyone to see. And audience, I invite you to copy and paste. There is a button on the bottom of your chat stream that allows you to copy the entire chat and put it onto a note or a Google Doc of your own so that you can save all of these things. We'll probably send it out to everybody. Okay, Eli, 1 to 2 minutes of describing the satanic spin, please.
Okay. I have to review it real quick, but yeah, okay.
Start with the flash.
So, yeah. So, level 1, we also relate to this flash, which comes from the concept of your brain is more conscious than you are. If you see like a flash of an image, even if you can't comprehend what it was, your brain stores it. And so sometimes it's really hard to detect what is causing you to go down that chemical scale in the first place. But the flash will be anything that gets you from level 0 to level 1 or further, just instantly, like a situation or a word someone says, or an image you see online. The spill is your brain's biochemical reaction to it, which leads to feelings. The chemicals turn into feelings, and then it goes into your thoughts. We call it the filing cabinet because you remember how you feel. And if Satan's doing his job right, he's trying to get you to remember previous times where you felt the same way. Then he can pull out those memories, you can relive them, get flashed again by those memories, go down the spill, go to the feelings, have another memory of when you felt it. And so you're put in this cycle of remembering and creating new memories of something you don't want to remember. And it just keeps going. And this is happening in between the levels, pushing you further and further down. And so the trick is really to break it, and break it quickly. That's why there's such an intense training involved in Sons of Helaman.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Now, many of you are going to think of questions at a time other than this. I believe that Karen and her team are going to have an open inbox somewhere, and I have all these guys on a mailing list. And so I will send your questions that you think of later tonight or tomorrow that you wish you would have thought of today, and they will all be invited to respond. And then we'll get that back out to you. Now, some of them are going to be leaving on mission soon. So if you have questions for them, you better ask soon or they're going to be unavailable. So, brethren, you are absolutely amazing. Karen, BJ?
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been so inspiring. And wow, we just really appreciate all of you being here. It's such an incredible, hopeful, energizing feeling to notice that you generals who are here are so driven toward your values and that you have the desire to be so wonderful in sticking in the values that you have. And it's so cool to notice the synergy of the brotherhood that you feel. And Maurice, it's so cool to watch you and listen to you interact with the generals. It's really awesome, the connection. So we have lots of different clinicians at LifeChanging Services, not just Maurice Harker. But we do love the way that Maurice facilitates in a generals panel. We've always loved it. And so we were feeling so excited about this evening's presentation. But before we go to a final message tonight with Maurice, we're going to just quickly tell you about some really neat things. And two of those, I'm not quite sure if they're on our slides, but one is the Q&A. BJ, is that on there? So one is, because you are registered for this, you will be invited to a monthly Q&A that Maurice Harker does with parents and leaders. And you'll also be informed about a podcast series that we're just about to kick off here with this evening's presentation, a series of podcasts about the Sons of Helaman program and the self-mastery training that we do here, so that you can share those podcast episodes. But I'm going to turn over to BJ, and then right after BJ's done, we're going to finish up with Maurice and some final thoughts. Maurice, if you'll share, just a message of hope, and maybe even it might be good to ask some of these guys why they fight, right? And then also, a call to action. But it's okay if you just go a few minutes over, because the why are you fighting is worth the time. It's so cool to hear these guys. Thanks, BJ.
Love it. Okay, yes. Thank you to Maurice and these generals. There's just some great information, and I loved looking what was put in the chat. If you generals have while we're going through this little bit of information, one thing that parents and leaders would love to know is, what is something that a leader or a parent did that was just helpful for you, that was just a game changer for you. So if you can put something in there, we're going to grab all of these comments from the chat that the generals put in, and we'll put them on a little document, and we'll send it out with a follow-up email that'll go out later this week. So if you can put that in, what did leaders or parents do that was really helpful for you? I know that parents and leaders will love to get their hands on that. If you have your phone with you and your camera, you can hold it up to that QR code. This book, Like Dragons Did They Fight? Maurice Harker is the author, and it's just been used as such a great companion tool for the Sons of Helaman program. And then just in general, self-mastery, just principles in there are just out of the park, knock it out of the park kind of principles. And so we've had so much, just so much great feedback on this. So feel free to do that. You can also look at the bottom of lifechangingservices.org, the bottom of that main page, and you'll see several other books that you can get free e-copies of, or paper copies that you can hold if you'd like. And then just a reminder, these are some of the programs that are offered through LifeChanging Services. We love sharing those. So many of us here have just found so much hope and help for our families with these different programs. And so you can go to lifechangingservices.org and just get a little bit more information there. If you are feeling like, I have a question, I'm not sure what to do next, I feel like we could use some additional support possibly, you can text the word hope to the number 801-923-2849. And you can also, we'll put this in the chat as well. You can also just visit with one of our awesome caring support staff. Just they have a free complimentary visit where you can just go and share a little bit about, hey, here's our situation. What kind of things do you have that can help? And they are incredible women that can help to share information there. Also, if you're a mom, you're going to want to know about this or share this with a mom. You know, this is a free training that is just made possible through LifeChanging Services. And it's an 8-part training you can just listen to when it's convenient for you. You'll hear a lot of the principles that are taught throughout LifeChanging Services programs in this training, but it's from a beautiful mom angle. Karen Broadhead put this training together, and hundreds and hundreds of women across the country have taken advantage of this, and we have loved just linking arms with them. So we always like to share that. There's a live portion of that training where we can come and learn a little bit more and ask questions. And so you can go to mompowertraining.com. Is it .com? We'll put that in the chat as well, and just register in 30 seconds, and we'll see you on October 3rd. We love that. Also, this is another free ebook that's available is such a great one for moms, Finding Hope When Your Child Battles Pornography or Other Challenging Issues. It's called Mama Trauma, and there's a QR code there on the screen. And so anyway, you can also find us on these different places. We're on Facebook, Instagram, on our podcast channel, and then also on YouTube. So Maurice, we want to just hand it back to you to wrap us up however you feel, but just big thanks to the generals, and thank you to Maurice for what you've been doing here today and for lots of years.
Thank you. Sometimes I have someone come to me and say, don't you think you should be copywriting this stuff more? Don't you think you should be like making sure of this, making sure of that? How come you just give everything away for free so much? And it became very clear to me very early on that I am not the originator of any of these principles. I am like an archaeologist. I look for and I strive to uncover principles that have existed way before I was born. The idea that spiritual and scientific concepts go hand in hand existed before I was born. And so the reason these concepts work has nothing to do with me. I strive to not have my name in very many places, etc., because I want the concepts to be what stands out. And my call to action is, if you are sincerely interested in understanding the self-mastery side of the repentance process, LifeChanging Services is not a religion. Sons of Helaman is not a church. We are a boot camp. We are a training system. Our job is to train the mind and the body to do what we want it to do, so that when these warriors spend time with their ecclesiastical leaders and when they spend time in their religious practices, they can stand with the confidence that they have bridled their passions, that they may be filled with love. And so my call to action is to test the concepts. My call to action is to run it through any scientific filter you can find, and run the principles through any spiritual filter you can find, and you will find the concepts rock solid and stable, whether I'm the author or not. Okay. All right, so there's my call to action. Gentlemen, please keep your answers to 15 seconds or 20 seconds. Zakaya, why are you fighting? Why don't you just give up?
because I have something worth fighting for, my family and friends who love me.
Eli, why are you fighting? Why don't you just give up?
I fight today for my guitar students who I can help bring to the Savior's love through my care and my patience for them.
Thank you. Jameson, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
Because I know I can do it. I have the dog in me. I know I have the strength to complete it, and I want to let my potential to go away.
Thank you. Aaron, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
Well, because I can't let Satan win, because if he does, everything will spiral down into chaos.
Thank you. Cade, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
I fight because normal gets on my nerves.
Ammon, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
I fight to be an example for others so that I can be able to help them along their journey, that I will be able to be a beacon to them.
Thank you. Bryson, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
I fight for my identity and who I am. I am someone who fights, and I don't give up because I'm not someone who gives up.
Thank you. Casey, why do you fight? Why don't you just give up?
I fight to be the man that not only God can be proud of, but that I can be proud of. And to be I don't give up because Jesus Christ already suffered for my sins, and I refuse to not fight by his side if he'll do that for me.
Thank you. And I fight because of what you've just witnessed. Okay? Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. We express our deep appreciation for each one of you. Thanks for leaving us with a reminder of our identity and purpose here. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight.
See y'all.
See ya, thanks.